Hi, how are you? I want to read you a portion of the final chapter of Bad Days, where Job comes into the revelation of his trial. There's a moment where his trial has understanding, has reasoning. There's a moment of why. It says, Job lives his bad days, crossing the ministry of trial. It was days where his wife was not with him, only his 3 unconsiderate friends, and an unexperienced youth, Elihu, that without mercy and compassion signaled and judged Job, and used God's name in vain to signal him out and accuse him of sin, saying that the bad days that he lived were the result of his pride and hidden sins that he had. But Job found his answer. A path was opened in the midst of his darkness and in the midst of trial, and he was confronted by love with the most marvelous person in the universe. Here there's something interesting. When I refer to the most marvelous person in the universe, I'm referring to God. He confronts him, and the confrontation is necessary. As parents, sometimes we have to confront our children, but love is the vehicle that is used to confront them. If we confront them with rage and we are quick to anger, it will make them rebel. It will make them be provoked to say things they don't really want to say, and maybe not even say them, but they will whisper them in silence. In the case of Job, he is hoarded by God's love, lost in that dark night of our soul. In that time of emptiness, the love of God brings something called revelation and confrontation. God confronts Job, confronts his humanity, and though he didn't give all the reasons, in love, he allows Job to come out of that condition of frustration, of being lonely, of being lost. Adding on to everything he went through, his 3 friends came and they were in silence and they felt bad for him. But then they started to attack him, signal him out without mercy, without consideration. And after a time, a youth comes. A youth who doesn't process life the same as someone who's lived twice as him. Now youth have a lot to give. They have energy, vitality, knowledge, intelligence, and nowadays there are children who are starting to do what we call artificial intelligence. But there is a greater intelligence, and that is spiritual intelligence. That makes us 10 times better than the rest. Let's go to the time of Daniel in Babylon. He was found to be 10 times better than the rest. In him, there was not intelligence that was artificial, there was a spiritual intelligence. And he was considered to be the wisest of all the astrologists, all the magicians, everything in the darkness. He was found to be 10 times better because he had spiritual intelligence. There comes a moment in Job's life where the confrontation in love brings him to have a spiritual intelligence and give him a correct interpretation of what he's living. And those of us who have read the book of Job, we know that this started not because Job sinned, because Job, the concept God gives us of Job through God, is that he had the fear of God and he was correct. Who comes there is the devil. The devil is the one who comes to talk in the midst of the angels and God. And even though the devil is the devil and he is the prince of this world and he has certain powers, he has to give accounts to God because God is everything. Nothing comes out of God's hands. You're worried right now. He's not worried about what's happening in the Middle East or Latin America. He's not worried about that. The world is of him, and everyone in the world is of him. But when we realize this, the devil has to give accounts because doing all this, he can't challenge God because God is God. He doesn't need to be challenged. He wanted to demonstrate through the hundreds of thousands of years, in a story like Job's, now in our reality, where science has increased and there's artificial intelligence, God wants to demonstrate there's something more powerful than artificial intelligence. That is spiritual intelligence, that is manifested through revelation And this is the point of revelation. God can reveal. Let's not complicate God, nor make it something mysterious. Revelation is a clear understanding, is a correct interpretation. And that light is only coming in the interaction that I have with God, not in a religious way, but in a way where I have to express what I feel to Him without losing sight of who He is and who I am. And in love, it is revealed to Job, just as it is going to be revealed in your life, and that you can understand the reasoning of why everything has happened in your life. Because there are things that are secrets and they belong only to God. But I want us to focus for a moment that Job passes the ministry of the trial. He understands the revelation of the trial. And in that spiritual intelligence, he says, with ears I have heard you, but now my eyes see you. And I ask you, and now you will answer me. And I know that in you I can do anything. I want you to know that in God you can do anything. There are hard times in our lives. And we've seen through every podcast that if you're just listening to this podcast or you're just seeing it, I want you to go back every Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning. This podcast comes out, and I want you to go back. And I want you to hear the whole series of bad days, of how we understand that we all have bad days at some point in our lives, and that becomes part of the trial. But the trial has 3 stages. We see the trial as it is, we see the mystery of the trial, that many people stay there, and we see the revelation of the trial. The revelation of the trial is we have that comprehension. In the end, we see how Job is restored, and everything in his life is doubled. His finances, he had double of everything. The most interesting is that God gives him 10 children with his wife, with the one that said, curse God and you die. Now let's go with her, and let's leave Job aside. She tells him, curse God and you die. Now, let's go with her, because normally we always stick to Job. And we see her, and we say she has no compassion. But no, if we go with her, we realize that she would touch her womb, that she was broken, she would cry, because she lost 10 children. 10 children that were in her womb, that she babied, that she lived stories with. But in the end, it's a very special thing. At the end, in the revelation of the trial and the understanding, in the end, she can experiment it again. She can experiment giving birth and being with the man in which she hated and rejected. Why? Because she was processing her pain too. Your trial has a revelation, and I want to encourage you to get Gold. It is a book that really will change your way of thinking and living. I am Willington Ortiz, and with the grace of God, I have written this book with spiritual intelligence, not artificial intelligence. Gold was written with spiritual intelligence, and it was years of process and months in a spiritual retreat, in fasting and prayer that I wrote this book. We've made investments in ourselves, but in entertainment and things that come and go. Gold will mark your life, so I encourage you to buy it. Take care.